Hey everyone, Royal here. Just wanted to put together a quick tutorial on basic Babel setup. And really the only prereq that you need for this is that you need to make sure that you have Node.js and npm installed on your machine. If you don't have that, you can head on over to nodejs.org, download everything there, and then get back to this tutorial, and it should be from scratch from that point forward. I'll drop a link to that down in the description for you as well. But we're going to start off by creating a brand new directory. So I'm going to go ahead and do a make dir here, and I'm just going to call mine Babel setup. Once that's made, we'll go ahead and jump into that directory. And the next thing we're going to want to do is we're actually going to want to do a npm init. So this will set up our project, and I'm going to pass it the -y flag so that way it just auto defaults everything, so I don't have to sit here and click everything. And you'll see it'll just give us a very basic package.json here, nothing special. So now that we have that set up, I'm going to pop into my code editor of choice. Let me go ahead and make that a little bit bigger for us. And I will open up a new terminal in here. So the rest of the terminal commands I'll go ahead and do here. So when starting to set up Babel, they have a nice setup guide over at babeljs.io/setup. And it has a bunch of different setup guides for all the different build environments, all the different things that you could probably ever imagine needing. Personally, I use the Webpack one for my more production-facing projects, but if you're really just wanting to get up in really understanding and just get a workflow going, right? You don't want to deal with everything else. You don't want to deal with everything that comes with Webpack and configuring that. This tutorial will be for you. So we're actually going to be following along to the usage guide that they have in their docs, and I will also drop a link to that below so you can follow along. So this is kind of like the video version of that, a little bit of a Cliff Notes version. There's going to be a lot more details in there, and I do encourage you to go take a look at that as well. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to actually install the various Babel packages. So here we're just going to do an npm install, and we're going to save these as development packages because these are all this is all done at build time. So this won't be a runtime package that's needed. It'll only be used on your dev boxes or in your build tooling systems if you decide to go that way. And it's going to be namespaced under the Babel package. So we're going to have Babel core. We're going to have Babel CLI or Babel command line interface, and we're going to have Babel preset env here. So let me go ahead and install those. And then once those are done installing, we're also going to be installing the Babel polyfill and core.js version 3. And those things, you don't actually explicitly declare them or use them anywhere, but they are used by Babel under the hood. So we will go ahead and I will clear this so it looks like everything installed properly. And the next command you're going to want to do is npm-i for install again, Babel/polyfill, and core.js version 3 here. So we'll let this one install as well. Okay, that looks good as well. So now that we have that all installed, we're going to go ahead and create a Babel configuration file, and that's going to be done by using touch here or any other way you want to create a file, and it's going to be called babel.config.js. We can see that popped up over here. So we have a brand new JS file. Inside here, we're going to set up our presets and we're going to export them. And this is what Babel is going to use when it's compiling our code into compatible code for various browsers. So here we go. I'll call it presets here. And we're going to use that Babel env here. And then we are going to have an object that has some targets. And these targets are going to be the browsers that we're targeting. This is just an example. You can use whatever browsers that you feel you need to be targeting with your project, but we'll put one in for each of the major browsers. So we have Edge, and we'll say Edge 17. We have Firefox, we'll say Firefox 60. We have Chrome 67 is what we're going to target here. And Safari. as our final one here, and we'll do 11.1 for that. After targets, we also have two other options that we need that we're going to pass in here. One's going to be use built-ins, and we're going to say usage. And then finally, we have that core JS that we saw earlier, and we're passing in version 3.0.0. So again, this is the various targets that we're going to be hitting. So these are hypothetically the browsers that we'd be targeting with our code base. And by specifying these targets, we're actually allowing the build that's going to occur with Babel.js to make an optimization. So it's only going to load in the transformations that need to occur in these browsers. So if you're writing some code and maybe it's like not quite cutting edge, but you would expect it to fail in an old version of IE, it might work in all these that you've targeted, so it won't actually bloat your build or anything like that, which is really cool. The use built-ins is kind of similar, where it will only pull stuff in that you use. So rather than pulling in everything under the sun, all the polyfills that Babel provides, it's only going to provide the things, or only going to pull the things in that it actually needs for the project that you were creating. Okay. And the core JS, this is just the profile that's being used. This used to not be required, but they started adding a warning message in. So when I first did this run through, I did not have this core JS, and it still built and everything worked correctly, but it just suggested to use this because it's going to be a breaking change in the future that you're going to have to add this. So it's just good to get used to at this point and moving forward. So that is the basic preset there that we're going to use here. Okay. And the last thing we need to do here is we just need to do our module.exports and export our presets just like that. And then the thing that we need to do next is actually write some sample code, right? So this is essentially, that was the entire configuration that we needed to get us up and running with Babel. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it source. Very common. And then inside of here, I'll do an index.js, again, very common. And I'm just going to add some newer style JavaScript, right, that might not work in all the browsers. So we're going to call this one const sum here. And we are going to create we're going to use the REST operator here, so we can collect any number of parameters, and it's going to collect them all into an array. And then we will actually return nums.reduce, and we are going to pass it a function that takes the previous and the current, and it just sums those two together. All right. Looks like I have an extra paren there. So simple summation function just to kind of show some of the newer features that might come up. And here's another example. So we have one that would be like merge state, and merge state will take a current state and the next state, for example. And all we're going to do with this is we're going to create an updated state that is just the two of them together. So we're going to use the spread operator, and this is essentially creating a new object that's going to take all the parameters in current, and then anything in next, it's going to overwrite the same parameters, or sorry, the same properties in those two objects and create a new object called updated. And then just for fun, we're going to return something, just an array with the next and the updated here. And then finally, we're going to export these two things. And that should do it for just kind of a nice little sample file. So this might work in a lot of browsers these days, but again, from a backwards compatibility standpoint, if you ever need to target multiple platforms, this just makes it a lot easier, right? You can write the code that you want to write without thinking too much about what browsers it's going to work in. So now that we have this, we need to compile it, right? So we installed the Babel CLI in one of the first steps. Now we're going to use it. So it is going to be stored in our node modules, sorry about that, modules directory. inside the binary folder, and it's going to just be called Babel. And then the command line arguments when you pass it is where to compile from. Again, we put our code in this source directory, so that's going to be our first parameter. And then we're going to also specify an output directory, and we're just going to call it dist for distribution. So if we run this, everything, oh, looks like that is not the correct thing here. My apologies, I believe it was a lowercase j here. So let's run that one more time. We're doing it live. Cool, so we successfully compiled one file, and you can see that we now have a dist file, or a dist directory, and another index.js, and it looks quite a bit different. So this is actually what it's going to do. It's going to pull in and define various things. It's going to create new functions, and it's going to build everything up so that way we can actually utilize this in any number of browsers that we need. So this takes a lot of the stress and strain out of trying to do backwards compatible code. So just one final thing, since this is going to be repeated a lot, we might as well add it to our package JSON. Instead of a test script, we'll just call it build. And we'll pass it just like that. And now if I delete this directory and then do npm run build, we should get exactly the same thing. So we now have a dist directory and the compiled file. A lot more code, right? So it's nice that we don't have to worry about any of this, and it just kind of gets taken care of here. So that's it. That's a very simple Babel.js setup, and I hope that you got everything you need from here. If there's any other questions or comments, feel free to leave a comment below. And also, if this was helpful, feel free to like it and subscribe for more content. Thanks.